we get in, and it's not just the latest episode of Slow Horses we'll be discussing, but of course, the exciting finale. So, John, why don't you go ahead and get us started off on the Slow Horses finale?
Yeah, so we start out with the, honestly, I don't remember exactly how we started out, except for they're chasing them down the highway. We have the main character, River, and Gary, right? Gary? Forget his name.
Yeah, Gary Oldman's character.
Gary Oldman's
Jackson
character,
Lamb.
and they're...
Lamb.
Lamb, right. So they're driving down. One of the other teams is in another car, and they've run out of gas. But it turns out they're going the wrong direction. And they swiftly go back to the last stop of the terrorists where they were. And we find them trying to chase them down while also watching we switch over and we see the oh man, I am just stumbling all over myself right now.
That's all right. It's all right. Basically, they tracked him down. They managed to save the day, and it was overall, I thought, as far as a finisher went for a first season run, that I was sad to see was only 6 episodes. But hey, you know what? They managed to tell the story. They managed to keep me wrapped in it. I thought it was well done overall. And I would definitely recommend it. To me, I would describe it. I was thinking about it last night while I was watching the show, and I was like, "This is like a this is basically The Other Guys meets 24. This is the Jack Bauer washouts. If Jack Bauer failed, that's kind of what this show kind of felt like, and so I really enjoyed it for that aspect." And honestly, I thought that through and through, Kurion, I think you were saying before the show, you actually decided to go back and rewatch the whole thing?
Yeah, I decided that, as is my kind of tradition when a season ends, I go back and I watch the whole thing so that I can kind of make sure I have that last episode in perspective. And yeah, there are some interesting pieces I hadn't quite picked up that they had been setting up more or less from the get-go that I thought were kind of interesting. Like, for example, we start seeing all the connections with all of these characters. You start realizing that every one of the slow horses, in one way or another, is connected to Diana for why they're actually in the group. And if it isn't Diana that's directly connected, it's Lamb when Lamb was working for Diana. So you really kind of realize that, you know, the Slough House really is like Diana's dumping ground for her own secrets. People that she can't get rid of for fear of those secrets eventually getting out when one of them like figures it out and writes their memoirs. But at the same time also needs them out of the way so she can continue, for lack of a better term, messing up and having, you know, more people that she has to kind of excommunicate from the main group.
Yeah, I found a lot of the twists at the end. I kind of did. I kind of saw the twist coming where Lamb was responsible for the other lady's husband's demise. I kind of figured that was going to be the case. They seem to kind of allude to that being the case, but they definitely showed that there's a lot of corruption involved within MI5, and that you're right. Slow Horses is basically, or Slough House is that, yeah, that's where she sends her problems and hopes that they go away. And it kind of changed my perspective a little bit on how Lamb treats that place. He says, "We don't do anything." And it's almost like maybe that's the agreement, is that he basically keeps the washouts under control, keeps her dirty little secrets from getting too involved in stuff, but not to the point where they're just going to remove them from existence altogether. And so it's an interesting relationship between those two, to say the least, to put it nicely, I guess you could say. John, looks like you have a thought?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more to Gary Oldman's like character, especially when it came to Slough House. It didn't to me. It didn't feel like he was working out a deal, but more so that he was choosing to take a step back from the more like the actual corruption, like the actual initiation of the false flag event. He didn't want his people to even be a part of it at the end, let alone would he have wanted them at the start. Like, I think with revealing that he had killed the other character's husband, it really showed that it seemed to be like his last day in the actual deep state, and now he was like, I don't want to be a spy and quit being a spy anymore, but I definitely need to stay away from everything that's important. And so I feel like his intention with Slough Horses was actually more of a, we're not going to be the bad guys either. Like, we're just going to do nothing so we can only accidentally do good at the worst case. But it didn't really seem like he was in cahoots with anyone. Like, he really feels like the Slough House is a requirement beyond everybody else to some extent. It's just people know how to use them, and Diane especially. But it also really felt like First Desk when she finally arrived and was like telling Diane, like, they were watching them get ready to shoot the unarmed combatant, and like she seemed like she was 100% in on it, and she kind of like that's why she ended up leaving, was to let Diane do this for a minute, take charge, and if Diane fails, it's Diane's fault, and then Diane's had her backup, even though she was already the backup. It's really what I got. It really felt like there was a bigger world to soon experience.
Well, they make a really great comment. I believe it's in the first episode when he's meeting with his grandfather, and it's something like, when you're in Moscow, you bury you bury your witnesses or whatever, but when you're in London, you cover your butt. And it seemed like everybody was covering their butt to the best of their ability through every means possible to try to avoid getting the stink on them once this all goes down.
Yeah,
I really feel like...
Go ahead.
Go for it, Parker.
No, you talk first. All right.
I was...
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was just going to say that it really felt like that one quote at the beginning saying that in London you cover your ass, that was the entire theme of the whole show. Was how hard you go to cover yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I did also, like I said, I really liked a lot of the I can't remember the kid's name who was kidnapped. He had some pretty good
Hassan,
lines.
I think it was.
Hassan was his name?
Yeah.
I think you're right, yeah. I should just pull up the IMDb page before the show starts from now on. But anyway, I've done that before. Oh well. I really liked a lot of his lines. You know, yes, there was the joke that he made, like, there's 1.8 billion Muslims, you're going to need a bigger van. I thought that was funny. But I really liked the line that he gave in this one when he said that, you know, when the Brotherhood guy is like, oh, you know, I'm gonna kill you, and then they're gonna come and shoot me down, and he goes, oh, so you're gonna be a martyr, just like the suicide bombers. I really like that line because it really drives home the point that the difference and the importance of recognizing people as individuals, because he said that in that moment to make a valid point about, you're no different than the people you supposedly hate. You're just like them. And he also, himself, Hassan, wants nothing to do with those people either. And that's what he managed to say. He managed to say both of those things in just that one line. And so I really like that because it really brings to light the reality that just because somebody might believe a certain way or act a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are that extreme person. And so I think the show did a great job of taking extremist ideals and just kind of pushing them to even further and working that into the plot while also working in the whole aspect of the false flag and just all of the intention behind MI5 to try and stage this whole thing to make them look good and justify their budget. And so, but then in the end, the slow horses, the guys that they don't like, that they want to just kind of have go off into a corner, are the ones that end up stepping up and morally doing the right thing by preventing an unarmed prisoner from getting murdered, essentially. And I mean, even Hassan was said, no, he needs to stand trial. He can't just be killed in cold blood like that. I mean, he deserved it, but he was right. He still needed to stand trial. So I think the show hit a lot of marks in a lot of ways. It wasn't afraid to step on toes, but I didn't feel like it did it in a way that some of the other shows that's on, get preachy about it. They just simply told a story, and I think this is a good example of good storytelling overall. No matter where you stand politically, no matter what message you want to put out, this show did a good job of just telling the story it wanted to tell. And so, yes, I continue to recommend this show. It's different, it's dark, but it's absolutely worth it.
I think you said it best at the beginning. It is very much a 24 meets the other guys.
Yeah, exactly. Carry on, you had...
Yeah, I think there were three things that I really noticed on the watch through. One, I think this tells a really good story on why extremism in any form is bad.
Absolutely.
Regardless of where it is, any sort of extremism, any sort of belief without compassion is just never going to work. And it kind of gives you that theme from a lot of different angles. I was also going to say that something that I don't think this show gets a lot of praise for, and it should, is actually the musical accompaniment and the background noise. The audio production on this is actually really good, and it's only something you notice when you're not in the moment of the action, is you realize how much they really did play with, background ambiance and sound, and how good and seamless that sound was. Like, I wouldn't necessarily pick up the soundtrack to this to listen, without the show, but it had so much to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was I think, and this is just a speculation, I think the music composer started with the opening theme song. It's that Rolling Stones song. I can't remember the title off the top of my head. And I think that they built the soundtrack off of that style. Similarly to how Giacchino did with the Batman, he used a Nirvana song, and it worked. It really, because it really just makes you feel the grittiness of the situation, and I was like, and I also got to give it credit too. It managed to subvert my expectations throughout the entire, except for the ending, which I kind of saw coming, but everything else, this show did not go the way we thought it was going to. And I was even surprised at kind of the way they ended it, where they had the one guy run away in the van, and then he gets gunned down, reaching up to touch his wound because he's in pain. And then, of course, they plant the pistol to cover their ass, as is the theme of this season. And from there, it was just the way the rest of it played out, I thought was actually pretty well thought out overall, and I'm actually looking forward to season 2.
I have good news on that front. It has been 100% confirmed. They've already cast and are preparing to start filming for season 2.
Yeah, I mean the trailer seemed to seem they already had footage to work with. So who knows? Maybe this will be one of those shows that just kind of gives us an off-season kind of off thing, and if it does, great. I mean, I'm actually excited for that premise. Looks like they're going to go MK Ultra this time. So I think that'll be a compelling story to work with on that. I mean, I don't think that's primarily going to be it, but that definitely was the hints I picked up on right away when they were talking about sleeper agents. But what do you guys think? What do you think season 2 is going to bring us?
Well, go for it.
I suspect the season 2 is going to be a more... It feels like they're headed towards cleaning out the rot. Whether it's going to be like they magically clean out the entirety of MI5 and then move on to the CIA is extremely doubtful. But it really felt like through the trailer sequence that they gave us that they were lining up for we're going to clean Diana out. Like the way she used us, we're going to get more on her. And I think that there's going to be a lot of room to see her have done a lot more dirty deeds that we never expected.
Yeah. So you think it's going to be a bit of a revenge story in the process too?
To an extent, I don't necessarily believe that it'll be revenge for this one act. I think it's going to be more like just retribution. So they're going to be compiling a case to get her kicked out. And that's what we're going to see a lot of, is either them getting the data or reviewing and what for us will be a flashback of the data or event. That's, I think, what we're going to get more from season 2. Based off just the way the show was headed in my head.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there is also a book for us to check out in between, so we can definitely do a book v show comparison in the future. I definitely would like to. I mean, that's part of what we like to promote on this show is more books. But yeah, I think they did a lot of things right with this show, and Lamb makes sense to me now. His jaded perspective, I get it. He's had a lot of people die, and that's basically why he's just so detached, and that's how he chooses to see things and process things. And so it's like, okay, I'm a little less critical of his methods of saying that you all suck. And I really like how Cartwright finished his sentence that last time when he's like, yeah, I know, but we're all shit, and she was less shit, or something like that. It was funny. And that's just it. It really shows, I think, good writing capability when you can do a show as serious as Slow Horses and then have the ability to inject humor the way that they did throughout the series, and those some of those off moments that I really liked it. So I'm definitely going to watch season 2. And we'll definitely cover it. But does anyone have any final thoughts? Any final discussions for the for season 1 of Slow Horses?
Well, I just feel like I'm really hoping the next season gets more episodes, because I feel like this is a series that deserves the old standard of like 62 or 52 episodes a season, because man, this thing is fantastic.
Yeah, no, it like I said, it subverted expectations, but also managed to stay on what it was trying to do, and so it's definitely worth checking out again. Probably. I mean, seeing as it's only 6 episodes, and that's the other thing too. I think we talked about this last week with the fact that shows are so serialized, and it's kind of hard to want to sit down and commit to a 10, 15 episode serial, right? Well, this show is only 6 episodes, and so that would definitely be a little easier for me to go back and do. But with that, I think we've pretty much covered. Unless, John, do you have any final thoughts on Slow Horses?
No, definitely would recommend though.
And that's how you know a show's good too.
Really fun.
Oh, sorry, cut you off.
Just one more thing to add, I guess. Well, I would say I recommend it because even though it is a very much version of the Other Guys Meets 24, it's not the same, like the big bad. It's not a whodunit thriller, surprisingly. You start to know who's the bad guys and who the good guys are right away, but you realize that like it's a human chaos event, and it's really fun to like listen to all the different parts of that, and the show does a really good job of showing you how much is really going on versus what the world's actually seeing, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's probably the mark of a good show, too, is one where we're not ripping it apart constantly. But who knows? Next week, for the first time in this show's history, we might not have an Apple product to discuss. So I'm a little scared. We'll see.